Everyone involved has their own version of the story, and somehow I ended up being the villain in all of them. But none of them were there when the real betrayal happened. None of them saw what I saw. I've tried to keep quiet to protect people who didn't deserve it, but I'm done protecting. This is what really broke me. So, picture this. It's almost midnight last Saturday, and James, my fiancé, the man I'm supposed to marry in 6 weeks, comes stumbling through the front door after his bachelor party. He's wobbling, smells like every brewery in the city combined, and he's grinning like he just won the lottery. I'm sitting on the couch, half asleep, half worried, when he slurs out, "Baby, the guys think you're kinda crazy. Controlling. Ha ha ha." They literally said that. I just blinked at him. My whole brain stopped. Like, what? I ask him what he's talking about, and instead of explaining like a normal human being, he bursts out laughing. Actually laughing. Then he tells me, like it's some hilarious sitcom gag, that his buddies took a vote on whether he should break up with me before the wedding. A vote. On me. Like I'm some agenda item on their little group chat meeting. I swear, for a second I thought he was joking. But no, his drunk little grin told me everything. He was dead serious. He says it all started because his friend Tommy, who I've never liked, by the way, asked why Victoria wasn't invited to our wedding. And let me pause right there. Victoria. His ex. The one he dated for 3 years back in college. The one who still pops up under every Instagram photo with those hard eyes emojis like she's auditioning for a role she already got fired from. The same woman who magically appears at every group hangout like she's been grandfathered into the friend circle for life. Yeah, that Victoria. Anyway, James tells me he initially defended me, saying it's completely normal for engaged couples not to invite exes to their wedding. And honestly, that should have been the end of the conversation. But no. Tommy starts lecturing everyone about how Victoria is basically part of the family, and how I'm being dramatic for not wanting her there. And instead of shutting it down like any sane partner would, James just sat there. Sat there while they tore me apart like I'm some group assignment they forgot to do until the night before it's due. He says that once the drinks started flowing and they hit their third brewery, things got worse, because of course they did. Suddenly they're dissecting my personality, listing off my flaws, deciding I'm jealous, insecure, too intense. Tommy even pulled out some ridiculous online article about relationship red flags and started reading it out loud like he's hosting a TED Talk. And James, my literal future husband, just sat there nodding like some bobblehead on a dashboard. Then came the vote. A literal head count. 4 guys said he should leave me. 3 said he should stay with me but make me apologize to Victoria first. And only 2 out of 9, said I was being reasonable. And James just told me this. Laughing. Like the whole situation was a cute little boys will be boys moment. He kept insisting that I should take it as a compliment that they care about him enough to give honest feedback. As if I should be grateful these clowns sat around ranking my flaws like I'm a contestant on some reality show. I finally asked him, straight up, what did you say in all of this? When they were voting on whether you should marry me. And suddenly the man sobered up. Defensive. Irritated. Telling me he tried to explain my side but that I need to understand how it looks from the outside. How it looks. How it looks. Like I owe his ex-girlfriend a VIP pass to my wedding just so strangers won't think I'm unreasonable. And here's the part that keeps clawing at me. This isn't the first time Victoria has been a problem. She's always texting him. Saw this meme, thought of you. Remember that little cafe we used to go to? My car's acting weird, do you know a mechanic? And when I bring it up, James looks at me like I'm accusing him of stealing state secrets. She's just being friendly. You're reading too much into it. That's his line. Every time. It's not that I don't trust him. I don't trust her. I don't trust the way she acts like she still has rights to him. When we got engaged, she was one of the first people to comment on the announcement. So happy for you guys? Can't wait to celebrate. Celebrate what? The end of her 3-year relationship with him? And now I'm supposed to swallow the fact that his entire friend group thinks I'm some controlling monster and that my fiancé just sat there while they voted on my worthiness? I spent all of Sunday trying not to cry or throw something, or both. I keep replaying everything in my head, wondering what else they said that James didn't repeat. If he was comfortable telling me this, what did he leave out? Did they talk about how I look? How I talk? Every little thing I've ever said around them? And then I spiral into this awful question. If James actually thought I was unreasonable, why didn't he talk to me privately? Why did his friends get a vote before I did? Tomorrow we're supposed to meet with our wedding planner to finalize the seating chart, and I honestly don't know how to sit across from James pretending everything is perfectly normal. Because nothing feels normal right now. The wedding is booked. Paid for. My dress, the venue, the catering, everything. And yet the only thing I can think about is walking down that aisle and seeing his groomsmen, knowing half of them think he should have left me. And I haven't told a soul. Not my mom. Not my best friend. Not even my sister Carly, who already thinks James is too attached to his man-child friend group, as she calls them. I feel embarrassed. Humiliated. Confused. And, honestly, furious. I need advice. I need clarity. I need someone to tell me I'm not losing my mind. Do I confront his friends? Do I demand James actually defend me? Do I try to pretend this never happened? Or do I seriously consider whether I should marry someone who treats my boundaries like suggestions and lets his friends vote on my relationship like it's a fantasy football draft? Because right now, I don't know if I can say I do to a man who didn't say anything for me when it mattered. First update. And before anything else, seriously, thank you. I read every comment you guys left, and it was like someone finally turned the lights on in a room I'd been stumbling around in. The message that kept repeating, over and over, was, "You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. This whole situation is messed up." And the person who said his friends basically held a tribunal? Yeah. That hit me right in the chest. Because that's exactly what it felt like. So let me tell you what happened next. The morning after that disaster of a conversation, James and I had our appointment with the wedding planner, Rachel, at this tiny little office tucked between a nail salon and a frozen yogurt place. You know those spaces where the AC hums too loudly and the fluorescent lights make everything feel like a bad sitcom? Yeah. That's where we were. James walks in acting like everything is completely normal. He's flipping through centerpiece photos, debating whether we want salmon or chicken, joking about how he can't remember the difference between dusty sage and eucalyptus green. Meanwhile I'm sitting there, heart pounding, trying to breathe through the fact that his groomsmen think I should be dumped like expired milk. I lasted maybe 10 minutes. Then my throat started closing up and I finally told Rachel we needed a few minutes alone. The second she stepped out and shut the door, it was like the air snapped. I just let everything out. Everything I'd been holding in since he walked through that door drunk and laughing about how his friends voted on my worthiness. And James? He immediately launched into the whole, "You're blowing this out of proportion" routine. He kept saying things like, "Guys talk trash when they're drinking. It's not that deep. You're taking this too seriously." I felt my jaw lock so tight I could hear it. And then, because the truth always leaks when people get cornered, he let something slip. Something much worse. When I pressed him for more details about what exactly they said about me, he started stumbling over his words and then admitted, casually, like it was nothing, that Tommy has been talking about this stuff for months. Not days. Not weeks. Months. Apparently, every time we hang out with the group, Tommy takes little jabs at me. He calls me uptight. Says James used to be more fun. Hints I'm ruining the vibe. And James has been sitting there. Listening. Laughing. Letting this man, his best friend, trash me behind my back for months without ever defending me or telling me. My whole body went cold. I asked him, straight out, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you shut it down?" And instead of apologizing, he got mad. At me. He said I was making him choose between me and his friends. He talked about how Tommy's been his friend since college, how he can't just cut someone off because they don't love everything about me. That's when things got heated. It escalated fast. James finally admitted, after dancing around it, that he thinks maybe some of the things Tommy says aren't totally wrong. He actually looked at me and said he's noticed that I get jealous when Victoria comes up and maybe I could try being more understanding about their friendship. And then? Then he really went for it. He suggested, seriously suggested, that maybe I should reach out to Victoria myself. That I should try to build a relationship with her so his friends could see the real me and realize I'm not controlling. I felt my stomach drop so hard it could have hit the floor. My own fiancé, the man who asked me to marry him, was sitting there telling me that maybe his friends were right to think I'm jealous. After 3 years together, he suddenly decides their drunk opinions carry weight. I told him, calmly, honestly, that if he actually believes they're right about me, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married. And he didn't immediately say no. He didn't pull me in and say, "Of course not, I love you." No. He went silent. Long, heavy, painful silence. Like he was actually thinking about it. Rachel eventually knocked on the door. It had been almost half an hour, and James just plastered on a smile and asked if we could reschedule. We walked to the car in silence. Drove home in silence. Sat in the living room afterward, in silence. I could practically see him replaying everything his friends had said. That night, he finally tried to smooth things over. He apologized for making me feel bad, which is the kind of apology that isn't an apology. And then, because apparently he is committed to missing the point entirely, he brought up Victoria again. He said, very sincerely, that maybe if I just gave her a chance, it would show his friends I'm not threatened by her and that I trust him. He kept insisting she's actually really nice once you get to know her. And that's when he confessed something that made my stomach twist into knots. Victoria has been asking him about our wedding. Not just small talk, details. Where it is. When it is. Whether there's still a chance she could be invited, after all. And James didn't shut that down either. He told her I was handling the guest list and it probably won't work out. As if he's apologizing that his ex can't attend his wedding. So I asked the obvious. Why would she think she might get invited in the first place? And he looked uncomfortable, guilty, because suddenly it made sense. He hasn't been setting boundaries. At all. He's been talking to her about our wedding planning. About our relationship issues. About the fact that I don't want her there. He painted me as the bad guy. I confronted him about it, and he said he was just being honest with her because she's been in his friend group for so long. He didn't want to be secretive. There's a massive difference between being secretive and telling your ex-girlfriend intimate details about your relationship. And he couldn't see it. Then came the suggestion that nearly made me walk out the door. He proposed, completely earnestly, that we should meet up with Victoria and some of the guys at the sports bar so I could see for myself that she's harmless, and so they could see that I'm not jealous. I just stared at him. He expected me to sit in a bar with his ex-girlfriend and his friends and perform some weird social audition to prove I'm worthy of marrying him. I told him absolutely not. No way. Not happening. But he didn't drop it. He kept pushing. He said if I really trust him, I should be willing to meet her. He said me refusing is proving their point that I'm controlling. He made it sound like I'm the unreasonable one, for not wanting to participate in a friendship Olympics with my fiancé's ex. I kept trying to explain that this isn't about trust, it's about boundaries, but he was too wrapped up in what his friends think. He kept going on about how everyone in the group is confused about why I won't try harder with Victoria. And that's when it hit me. James cares more about how he looks to his friends than how I feel as his fiancé. More about being the chill guy with the cool fiancé than the man who protects his relationship. More about not rocking the boat than choosing the person he's supposed to build a life with. And I don't know where that leaves us. Thursday afternoon, I was doing the most innocent thing in the world, wandering through Target, grabbing a few things I needed for work. I had a coffee in one hand, a shopping basket in the other, and honestly I was just trying to enjoy 10 minutes of peace. Of course, the universe had other plans. I turned down the pharmacy aisle, and there was Mila, one of James' coworkers. We're not best friends or anything, but we've always gotten along at company happy hours. She's one of those people who gives off friendly, big sister energy. She smiled and waved me over, and we started chatting while we waited for the pharmacy clerk. Just normal stuff at first, work, life, whether allergy season was trying to kill everyone. Then she mentioned the wedding, how excited everyone at the office was for us, and I swear, I felt my stomach clench because I could tell she was working her way toward something. And sure enough, her expression shifted. She lowered her voice and asked, "Hey, is everything okay between you and James?" My heart dropped straight into my shoes. I asked her what she meant, trying not to look panicked, and she hesitated, like she was debating whether to get involved, but then she said James had seemed stressed lately. That he'd been talking to some of the guys at work about relationship stuff. I felt cold all over. I already knew he'd been venting to his college friends, but now, his coworkers too? Mila told me, gently, that she'd overheard James talking to Earl about whether it was normal for a fiancé to be jealous of her partner's female friends. She said it like someone easing bad news out of an envelope, careful, slow, not wanting to hurt me. But it hurt. It hurt so much. Because that wasn't just venting. That wasn't wedding stress. That was James framing me as the unreasonable one, fishing for validation from people who barely know me. Mila said she'd also overheard Earl telling James that some women just can't handle their partner having female friends, and that maybe James needed to be firmer about setting expectations with me. I swear my vision went blurry for a second. Because suddenly it clicked. It wasn't just his friends taking votes on whether I should be dumped. Now his coworkers, literal coworkers, think I'm a jealous, clingy stereotype too. Not because of anything I said, but because of the way James was telling the story. Before we finished talking, Mila apologized for mentioning it. She said she just thought I should know because she could tell something was off. And honestly, I'm glad she did. When I got home, I confronted James the moment he walked through the door. He immediately tried to downplay everything. Said he was just venting. Said everyone asks their coworkers for advice. Said it didn't mean anything. But asking whether your fiancé is jealous of your female friends is not neutral wedding stress. That is deliberate. That is shaping a narrative. He kept insisting I do the same thing, talking to Carly, talking to my friends, so why couldn't he? I told him the difference is that I talk to people who care about our relationship, people who actually try to help us fix things. James is talking to acquaintances, not for advice, but for validation. He's feeding everyone a curated version of events so he can look like the patient, long-suffering fiancé, and I'm the unreasonable one. And then he said something that made my blood boil. He said maybe his friends and coworkers were noticing something I'm not. That maybe hearing the same feedback from multiple people should tell me something. Basically, if enough people think I'm unreasonable, maybe I actually am. I just stared at him. He was seriously suggesting I take relationship advice from Earl, a man whose idea of romance is sending women coupons for wing night, and Tommy, who still talks like he's living in a fraternity basement. James said outside perspective is valuable, and that I'm too close to the situation to see it clearly. Translation. He trusts them more than he trusts me. Then came Friday morning. I woke up early for a work presentation, still exhausted from the fight the night before. I walked into the kitchen to grab my keys, and James' phone was sitting on the counter, plugged in and lighting up with a notification. Victoria's name. Of course. The preview said something about wedding planning. My heart sank, and without even thinking, I picked up the phone. I didn't go digging for dirt. The message was right there. She was asking if James had talked to me about reconsidering the guest list, and whether there was any chance I might change my mind about inviting her. My pulse started pounding in my ears. I scrolled up, and found weeks of messages. Weeks. Conversations I didn't know existed. Victoria was messaging him constantly, work drama, family stuff, random nostalgic memories about their college days. But mixed into all of that were comments about me. About our relationship. About our wedding. She kept asking how planning was going, whether I was being difficult, whether we were getting along. And James? He answered. Every time. He complained about me. Said I was stressing him out. Said I had too many opinions. Said I was making things harder than they needed to be. Then I found the message that nearly made me drop the phone. A few weeks back, James told Victoria that sometimes he wondered if things would have been easier with her because she was always so laid back. Victoria replied with crying laughing emojis and said, some people are just naturally high maintenance. They were talking about me like I wasn't a real person. Like I was some inconvenient obstacle he was being forced to handle. And the worst part? James wasn't defending me. He was agreeing. Encouraging it. Then I found messages where he told her about our fights. Every detail. Things I thought were private. He even told her about the time I got upset because she liked all his Instagram posts. She told him she hadn't realized and would be more careful. And James told her not to change anything. That I was just sensitive. Sensitive. My hands were shaking when I put the phone down. When he came home Friday night, I didn't ease into it. I didn't ask questions. I didn't give him space to wiggle around the truth. I read the messages out loud, one after another. Watched his face go white. At first he tried to defend himself. He said he and Victoria have always talked about everything. That she knows him well, that she gets him, so of course he'd open up to her during a stressful time. I told him point blank that discussing your relationship problems with your ex is not getting support. It's emotional intimacy. And he had been choosing her for that. He tried to flip it on me, saying I shouldn't have looked at his phone. That snooping proved I had trust issues. That his friends were right. He actually said that I was acting controlling. I couldn't believe it. I told him trust isn't the issue. The issue is respect, boundaries, commitment, not sharing my insecurities and our private arguments with the woman who used to date him. But he wouldn't hear it. He kept trying to turn everything around, insisting the real problem was me looking for issues that didn't exist. And that was the moment I realized something dark and painful. James wasn't trying to see my perspective. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He was trying to protect the image he built with everyone else. The image where I'm the difficult one. And he's the patient fiancé putting up with me. And I don't know how to come back from that. Thursday night, my phone buzzed with a call from my sister Carly. She was just checking in, asking about the bridal shower, the dress fitting, the usual pre-wedding chaos. And I didn't even try to pretend everything was fine. The second she asked, "How are you holding up?" I cracked. I told her everything. Every last detail. And Carly did not take it lightly. She went from calm big sister mode to full-on protective lioness in about 3 seconds. She practically yelled into the phone, saying she'd been suspicious of James' friend group from the beginning, how they always act like they're still living in a fraternity house instead of being grown adults with jobs and bills. She said something that sliced right through me. Healthy friend groups don't vote on someone else's relationship. That's not normal. That's not supportive. That's possessive. And honestly, hearing her say it out loud made everything click in my head. Then she added the part that's been echoing in my mind nonstop. If James loves you and wants to marry you, why does he need Tommy's approval? Why does he need any of their approval? Why does their opinion matter more than yours? And I swear, the moment she said that, I felt something shift inside me. Because she was right. She was so right. If James was truly committed to me, he wouldn't care whether Tommy, the grown man who still wears cargo shorts and lives on energy drinks, approved of our relationship. But the moment I told her about the messages with Victoria, Carly absolutely lost it. She didn't even try to hide her disgust. She said what I had been afraid to say out loud. James is having an emotional affair. She said that confiding in your ex about your current relationship, seeking emotional comfort, validation, and support, is absolutely, positively not okay. She pointed out that Victoria was clearly enjoying the situation. That she was positioning herself as the cool, understanding one. That she was using their conversations to wedge herself deeper into James' life. Carly told me, point blank, that I needed to really ask myself whether I wanted to marry someone who shares our private issues with his ex, lets his friends critique me like I'm a Netflix submission, and then folds under their pressure instead of defending me. She said something that chilled me. Behavior like this doesn't disappear after marriage. It becomes the foundation. And I knew she was right. Saturday morning, James suddenly decided he wanted to do a reset. He suggested a day trip to the outlet mall an hour away, some last-minute wedding shopping, maybe grab lunch, try to get back to normal. Problem is, nothing felt normal. We walked around the mall, and he acted like the past week never happened. He started talking about flower upgrades and whether we should add more candles to the reception tables. And the whole time, I kept thinking about those messages with Victoria, every one of them where he complained about me, every one of them where she chimed in like she was auditioning for fiancé number 2. By the time we stopped in the food court to grab lunch, I was barely holding it together. Then James decided to jump right into the worst possible conversation. He leaned forward, took a deep breath, and said maybe we should clear the air by meeting with his friends, together. He said I could show them I wasn't the controlling, jealous person they thought I was. Yes. He wanted me to perform for them. Like a PR campaign. I stared at him, stunned. I told him I wasn't going to host some awkward dinner where I parade around trying to earn approval from people who had literally voted on whether I should remain in his life. But James wouldn't drop it. He kept insisting that if they got to know me better, their concerns would disappear. He said it would reassure them. Reassure them. Not me. Not the woman he's supposedly building a life with. Them. We ended up arguing right there in the middle of the food court. Me telling him I shouldn't have to prove my worthiness. James telling me I was being stubborn. 2 teenagers at the next table staring at us like they were watching live reality TV. I felt humiliated. Not because we were arguing in public, but because the person I was arguing with was the man I thought I knew. The man I thought loved me. The man who clearly cared more about what his friends thought than how I felt. He even said, without flinching, that if I truly loved him, I'd make an effort to bond with the people who matter to him, even if it made me uncomfortable. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was surreal. Since when is his friend group's approval the price of admission for being with him? Now I'm supposed to meet my mom this weekend to go over bridal shower prep. And I have absolutely no idea what to tell her. How do you explain that your fiancé's friends think he should dump you? How do you tell your mother that your fiancé has been discussing your private relationship details with his ex-girlfriend like she's his personal therapist? How do you look anyone in the eye and admit that your fiancé isn't even completely disagreeing with them? The wedding is 5 weeks away. And I feel like the man I'm engaged to is evaporating right in front of me. The version of James I fell in love with, the one who respected me, who stood beside me, would never have let his friends vote on our future. He would never have fed private details to his ex like it was entertainment. So what changed? Did he? Or did I just not see who he really was? I keep bouncing between heartbreak and rage. Part of me wants to call off the wedding just to watch the shock on his friends' faces when their opinions suddenly don't matter. But the bigger part of me, the part that's still hurting, is starting to wonder if they're right. If maybe James and I aren't the match I thought we were. If maybe marrying him would be walking straight into a lifetime of feeling second place to his friends, his coworkers, and worst of all, his ex. And the scariest thought? Maybe I'm finally seeing the truth. Second update. And honestly, things have spiraled into territory I didn't think my life would ever touch. Every time I think I've hit the limit of how disappointing this situation can get, something else happens and the floor drops out again. And to everyone who told me to stop minimizing the Victoria situation, thank you. You were right. The comments about emotional affairs, about toxic friend circles, those have stuck with me like glue. And now everything is unfolding exactly the way you all warned me it would. Sunday morning, I was supposed to meet my mom at this cozy little cafe near her house. It's her favorite place, quiet, lots of natural light, the kind of place where they know her usual order before she sits down. She'd been planning the bridal shower for months, collecting ideas like it was her second job. She had Pinterest boards, printouts, even little sample trinkets she wanted to show me. But I couldn't focus on any of it. She was excitedly talking about cupcakes and color themes, but all I could hear in my head was James telling Victoria I was high maintenance. All I could see were those messages where he basically wished out loud that he was marrying his ex instead of me. All I could think about was his friends taking a vote on whether I deserved to be engaged. Eventually she stopped mid-sentence and looked at me the way only a mother can, like she could see every emotion I was trying to hide. What's wrong, sweetheart? I tried the usual excuses, just tired, wedding stress, long week, but she wasn't buying it. Not for a second. And then, I broke. Right there in the middle of the cafe. I told her everything. The bachelor party. The vote. The messages with Victoria. The emotional intimacy he was giving her instead of me. Everything. My mom's face went through about 4 different stages of anger, confusion, disbelief, fury, and then that deep, maternal protectiveness she doesn't pull out often, but when she does, it's terrifying in the best way. She said James had disrespected not just me, but our entire family. That a real partner, her words, doesn't let anyone speak about their fiancé like that. She said a man who runs to his ex when things get tough is not a man who's ready for marriage. And then she said something that cut me straight down the middle. Does your father know any of this? I told her no, and she shook her head as if that wasn't acceptable. You need to tell him. He would be devastated knowing James has allowed this kind of disrespect toward his daughter. And God, that hit me so hard. Because the idea of my dad hearing all of this made me feel sick and humiliated. My parents have loved James. They've bragged about him. They've been so excited to gain a son-in-law they thought was kind, respectful, stable. How was I going to look them in the eye and say, actually, he let his friends debate whether I'm worth marrying? My mom completely shut down the bridal shower planning right then and there. She said, no. This isn't what we need to be talking about right now. She called my dad and told him to meet us at home immediately. I spent the entire drive replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out how to explain the mess without breaking into tears. By the time we got to the house, my hands were shaking. My dad was waiting in the living room with this quiet, steady expression that made my stomach twist. My mom told me to start at the beginning, so I did. Again. Every single awful detail. And my dad just sat there, silent. Listening. Growing angrier by the second. He didn't interrupt once. But his jaw kept tightening until I could practically hear his molars grinding. When I finished, he let the silence sit for a moment before he finally spoke, and his voice was the calmest, hardest thing I've ever heard. He said that in 35 years of marriage he has never once let his friends insult my mom. Not once. He said that sharing relationship problems with an ex is completely unacceptable. That protecting your partner from disrespect is the bare minimum, not some heroic act. Then he asked if James had apologized or said he would distance himself from Victoria and set boundaries with his friends. When I told him James still thinks I'm overreacting, and actually wants me to meet with Victoria to prove I'm not controlling, my dad's expression turned absolutely stone cold. My mom suggested maybe they should sit down with James themselves. I panicked, imagining the explosion that would cause, but my dad wasn't joking. He said, if this man wants to be part of our family, he needs to understand that disrespecting you means disrespecting all of us. And for the first time in my life, I saw my dad genuinely angry. Monday morning, I went to work feeling like I'd been hollowed out. The distraction was actually a relief. I could pretend for a few hours that my relationship wasn't crumbling. My coworker Natalie noticed immediately that something was off. I wasn't planning on telling anyone, but when she asked how wedding planning was going, I blurted out the bachelor party vote. She was horrified. She said her husband's friends would never behave like that. That partners should defend each other, not let their friends treat the relationship like a group project. Then she asked a question that stuck with me. Have there been other red flags you brushed off because you didn't think they were a big deal at the time? And suddenly, I saw it. The pattern. James has always defaulted to other people's opinions, Tommy's, coworkers, friends, literally anyone's, over mine. Apartment hunting, engagement party planning, big decisions, small decisions, he always needed outside validation. I thought it was just his personality. But now I'm wondering if he simply doesn't trust his own judgment, or mine. Maybe the bachelor party wasn't an isolated moment. Maybe it was the clearest expression of who he's always been. That afternoon, James texted me asking to meet at the park near our apartment. He said he'd been thinking about everything and wanted to clear the air. I went, hoping he'd finally understand the gravity of what he'd done. He was sitting on a bench by the playground, looking very serious and reflective. At first, he said all the right things, he'd been soul-searching, he could see why the messages with Victoria were hurtful, he understood how it looked inappropriate. For a brief moment, I let myself hope. But then he pivoted. And it all fell apart. He said he still thought I was overreacting about the bachelor party. That his friends were just trying to look out for him. That maybe I should consider their perspective. The blood drained from my face. I asked him directly. Do you think they're right? Do you think I'm controlling and jealous? And he hesitated. For way too long. Finally he said, very gently, almost patronizingly, that he thinks there might be some truth to their concerns. But that he loves me anyway. Anyway. Like loving me is some huge act of kindness he's bestowing upon me despite my glaring flaws. Like I'm a burden he has decided to carry. I felt something crack inside me in that moment. Because no one deserves to be loved anyway. Not in the context he meant. You deserve to be loved fully, not tolerated. And suddenly, everything became painfully, heartbreakingly clear when James said he thought there might be some truth to his friend's concerns. Something inside me snapped. I took a long breath, looked him straight in the eyes, and said, if you really think I'm controlling and jealous, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married. And I meant it. A marriage should be a partnership between two people who respect each other, not a dynamic where one person thinks the other is a problem to be fixed. James immediately backpedaled. Oh, no, that's not what I meant, he said, waving his hands like he could erase the moment. But then he pivoted straight into the most patronizing speech I've ever heard, talking about communication issues, how maybe we should try couples counseling, how therapy could help me work on the behaviors his friends apparently think are red flags. The way he said it? It felt like therapy was something I needed to correct my attitude. Not something for us to do together. Not something to address his behavior. Him suggesting counseling wasn't about rebuilding trust. It was about him wanting proof that I was willing to change for him. Proof that I'd fix myself to make his friends more comfortable. The conversation escalated fast. I told him the real issue wasn't my personality. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't communication. It was the fact that my fiancé talks about our private relationship with his ex-girlfriend like she's some kind of relationship mediator. It was the fact that he lets his friends hold public opinion polls on whether I'm good enough. And James? He didn't want to talk about any of that. He said I was missing the point. That the real problem wasn't what we think of each other, it was how other people perceive our dynamic. He kept insisting that outside perspective is valuable. That we might be too close to see the truth. I told him his so-called outside perspectives were coming from people who already have stakes in this. People who don't like me. People who don't want this relationship to work. Tommy isn't neutral. Victoria definitely isn't neutral. His coworkers who don't even know me aren't neutral. But James doubled down. And then, he said the thing that made my vision go white around the edges. He told me the only reason I didn't want outside input was because, deep down, I know some of their criticisms are valid and I'm afraid to face my own behavior. I swear, I felt heat rush up my neck. I couldn't believe he was spinning it like I'm avoiding accountability, when he's the one refusing to look in the mirror. I told him the truth. I'm not afraid of criticism. I'm furious that you think other people get to evaluate me like I'm competing for a job. He said he has made his choice, he proposed, didn't he? But he insisted that doesn't mean we shouldn't listen to feedback from people who care about us. I told him his community consisted of college friends who still act 19, coworkers who barely know me, and an ex-girlfriend who clearly enjoys being his emotional support line. That is not a supportive community. That's a jury stacked against me. Finally, I asked him point blank. What do you want from me? Do you want me to apologize to Victoria? Invite her to the wedding? Sit down with your friends and let them outline why I'm not good enough? He didn't even flinch. He said he wanted me to make an effort with the people important to him even if it made me uncomfortable. That if I truly loved him, I'd want to reassure his friends that their concerns were unfounded. I just stared at him. You expect me to audition for approval? I said. That's a bigger red flag than anything you think I'm doing. Because someone who loves you doesn't ask you to prove your worth to other people. Fast forward to Wednesday evening. I was at the grocery store, just trying to grab ingredients for dinner, when I heard my name. I turned around, and there was Deborah. James' mom. I've always liked her. She's warm, upbeat, always smiling. And at first she was her usual self, excited about the wedding, asking about last-minute details, talking about how thrilled she is to have me in the family. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. James told me you two have been dealing with some pre-wedding stress. I hope you're working through it. I tried to stay neutral, just said wedding planning can be overwhelming. But she kept pushing gently, and then eventually not so gently. She finally said James told her I was having concerns about his female friendships. That stopped me cold. James talked to his mother about this. His mother. Not about the bachelor party vote. Not about the messages with Victoria. Not about him sharing our private arguments with another woman. No. He framed it as me being uncomfortable with his female friends. Deborah went into this whole story about how she had to learn to be comfortable with her husband's female friendships. How it made their marriage stronger when she stopped overthinking it. Then, she told me she hoped I'd give Victoria a chance. Called her such a sweet girl. Said she's been part of their friend group forever. Said Victoria has always been respectful of James' relationships. Respectful. I almost laughed. Or cried. Or both. Deborah had no clue about the messages. No clue about the bachelor party vote. No clue that her son's ex-girlfriend has been positioning herself as the cool, easygoing alternative to the woman he's supposed to marry. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to pull out my phone and show her the texts. I wanted to let her see exactly what kind of respectful girl Victoria really is. But standing in the middle of a grocery store aisle between canned tomatoes and cereal boxes wasn't the place. So I swallowed everything. I just told her James and I were working on our communication. But inside, I felt something crumble. Because now James is spinning this story to his family too. Painting me as the insecure fiancé who just doesn't like his female friends. He's creating a narrative. A version of me that isn't real. And everyone in his life is believing it. That conversation with Deborah rattled me more than I expected. Not because she was rude, she wasn't. But because it made everything snap into focus. James has been talking to everyone in his life about our relationship, except me. His friends knew. His coworkers knew. Victoria knew every last detail. And now even his mother is fully briefed, just with a conveniently edited version where I'm the irrational, jealous fiancé who can't handle female friendships. And James? He's the calm, reasonable victim in every retelling. When I got home, I told him I'd run into his mom. He shrugged, unfazed, and said, it's normal to talk to family about relationship issues. And yes, he's right, to a point. But what he's doing isn't asking for thoughtful advice. It's not seeking perspective from people who genuinely want us to succeed. It's complaining. It's venting. It's framing me as the problem over and over again to every audience he can find. I told him exactly that. I asked why he talks to literally everyone else before he talks to me. Why is Victoria, the one woman who absolutely should not be part of this conversation, the first to hear about our private problems? Why did his friends get to cast a vote before I even knew there were concerns? James just kept repeating that he's trying to get perspective on a difficult situation. As if airing out our relationship issues like town gossip is noble. When I asked him why he never brings these concerns to me first, he didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Thursday morning was supposed to be my final dress fitting. I was supposed to walk into that boutique, step into my gown, and feel that warm, fluttery feeling every bride talks about, the moment where everything starts to feel real. Instead, I canceled the appointment. Because I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there in front of mirrors and pretend I was preparing to marry a man who values everyone else's opinions more than mine. The whole situation feels surreal. It's like I've been planning a wedding for a relationship that only existed in my imagination. The version of us I thought we were, isn't real. The version of James the first thought I knew? I don't think he ever existed. And all I can hear in my head is what my dad said. Protecting your partner from disrespect is one of the most basic responsibilities of being in a relationship. James hasn't protected me from disrespect. He's handed people the microphone. He's supplied them with talking points. He's invited their opinions. He's encouraged them to treat me like a character flaw instead of the woman he claims to love. He's been feeding his friends and his ex and his coworkers this narrative where I'm the difficult one. The controlling one. The jealous one. He didn't just fail to stop the disrespect. He became part of it. The wedding is now 4 weeks away. 4. And I still have no idea what I'm going to do. Carly keeps texting me, asking for updates. I know the second I tell her what's happened, she's going to tell me to run. My parents are waiting to see whether I want them to confront James, and the very idea makes my stomach flip. Meanwhile, James is walking around acting like everything is perfectly normal, like we're just having typical, pre-wedding jitters and not dealing with the fact that he has undermined our relationship at every turn. He has absolutely no idea what's coming. And honestly, neither did I, until yesterday. Because I've been thinking, really, truly thinking. And I realized something. If James wants outside perspective so badly, if he wants everyone else's input, if he wants the whole world to weigh in on us, then maybe it's time he got a perspective shift he never saw coming. Not from his friends. Not from his ex. Not from his coworkers. Not from his mother. From me. The woman he keeps calling controlling. The woman he keeps painting as difficult. The woman he keeps criticizing behind my back. The woman he keeps underestimating. I'm about to prove him incredibly, painfully wrong. The only question now is whether I have the courage to follow through, because once I do this, there's no pulling back. No undo button. No soft landing for him. And I promise you, the next update is going to be big. Like doozy big. Stay tuned, last update. And trust me, this is the one you've been waiting for. Because everything that happened next, it was like watching the entire truth burst into flames in real time. James thought he could let his friends vote on my worthiness. He thought he could paint me as jealous and controlling to anyone who'd listen. He thought he could confide in his ex-girlfriend while calling me the problem. Well, he was about to meet the real woman behind the controlling and jealous label, and he had no idea what was coming. How it all started, and how it all blew up. Wednesday afternoon, my sister Carly was driving home from a dentist appointment. She decided to swing by this little plaza downtown, the one with the Target and the smoothie place, just to grab some things. As she walked through the parking lot, she spotted James's car parked in front of the flower shop. Her first thought? Oh wow, maybe he's finally doing something thoughtful. Maybe he's getting flowers to apologize. She parked a few spots away, honestly happy for the first time in days, and waited, thinking maybe she could help him surprise me. Then James walked out of the shop carrying a massive bouquet of red roses. Huge. Romantic. Deliberate. Carly said her stomach fluttered for a second, thinking, finally. He's stepping up. But then he got into his car and drove in the opposite direction of our apartment. Carly's instincts went off like sirens. Why would he buy me roses, then drive away from where I live? Why wasn't he coming home? She decided to follow him, keeping her distance, not wanting him to notice. She trailed him for about 15 minutes as he drove across town, finally parking near this giant recreation area, the one with hiking trails and the old carousel from the 70s. And that's when Carly saw her. Victoria. Sitting on a bench near the carousel in this soft little sundress, looking like she was waiting for her Prince Charming to show up. And Prince Charming arrived, holding my roses. The moment it all shattered. Carly said her jaw literally dropped. James walked right up to Victoria with the bouquet, my bouquet, and handed it to her. And Victoria lit up like a Christmas tree. She jumped up, wrapped her arms around him, and hugged him like they were lovers reunited in a movie. And that hug? It was long. Way too long. Way too intimate to be just friends. Then they sat on the bench, practically glued together. James had his arm around her shoulders. She was snuggled into him, smelling the roses, smiling up at him like she was living in a dream sequence. And then? James brushed her hair back. Victoria put her hand on his chest. She whispered something that made him laugh. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. My sister said she felt like she'd been punched. She got it all on video. Crystal clear. James, my fiancé, being tender and romantic with his ex-girlfriend, the same woman he insisted was just a friend, the same woman he defended over me for months. Carly stayed hidden and filmed for nearly an hour as they acted like a couple. Holding hands while walking around the park. Riding the carousel together, giggling like teenagers. Sitting close, talking quietly. Touching each other constantly. It wasn't innocent. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't ambiguous. It was a date. A full date. The moment Carly told me. When Carly finally drove home, she was shaking with rage. She called me immediately. At first, I couldn't even process the words, it sounded impossible. Unreal. But then she sent me the video. Watching it was like having the air punched out of my lungs. Every accusation he made about me being jealous? Every lecture about trust? Every conversation where he gaslit me about Victoria? All of it, lies. He wasn't just emotionally close to her. He wasn't just sharing personal details. He was cheating. Period. My anger was so intense it felt like electricity buzzing under my skin. And suddenly, my original plan for the family meeting felt like the perfect place to expose him, because now, I had proof. The gathering. Friday evening, I texted James and told him I was finally ready to have the big conversation about our future, with the important people in our lives present for support. His response? He was thrilled. He thought I was finally agreeing to his ridiculous idea of letting his friends lecture me about how I should change. He even asked if he should invite Tommy and a couple of the bachelor party guys. I said absolutely, the more, the merrier. The arrogance on this man was unreal. Little did he know, I had assembled an entirely different audience. Setting the scene. I got to the community center early and booked one of the big meeting rooms. I set up chairs. I placed my laptop on the table. I made sure everything was ready. James walked in with Tommy and two other friends behind him like they were the judging committee of some relationship competition. He was so smug. So confident. So sure he finally had the upper hand. But then the door opened again. And in walked my mom, my dad, my sister Carly, my uncle Edward, who is basically the family's terrifying judge, jury, and executioner. James's face drained of color so fast it was almost impressive. Tommy even muttered, what is this? Oh, boys. You're about to find out. The confrontation begins. I started the meeting calmly, which probably scared James more than if I'd yelled. I thanked everyone for coming. I said I wanted to talk openly about our relationship since James believes so strongly in getting outside perspectives. Then I asked James to explain, out loud, in front of my family, what happened at his bachelor party. He froze. Tommy, being Tommy, jumped in to help. He proudly explained that they were just being honest, and that the vote was because they cared about James's happiness. My parents' expressions? Lethal. That's when I closed my laptop, looked James directly in the eyes, and said, okay, since outside perspective matters so much, let's get some perspective on this. And I played Carly's video. Full volume. Full screen. Full clarity. The room explodes. The moment the video started, James handing Victoria the roses, Tommy's face went slack. The other two guys looked like they wanted to melt into the carpet. My mom gasped. My dad's jaw clenched so hard I thought he might break a molar. Carly just crossed her arms. And James looked like a corpse. All the smugness evaporated. He kept whispering, it's not what it looks like, but the video showed exactly what it was. Roses. Cuddling. Kisses. Hand-holding. Playful flirting. Romantic gestures. Hours together like a couple. It was undeniable. Tommy tried to say something, but my uncle shut him down with a single look. When the video ended, the room was silent except for James whispering my name like it was a lifeline. But I was done. Completely done. And this? This was only the beginning of what I said next, and then, the room went nuclear. My mom stood up, reached calmly into her tote bag, and pulled out a thick folder. I knew exactly what it was, the screenshots. After I first discovered James and Victoria's messages, I photographed every single one. Every ugly comment. Every whispered complaint. Every line where Victoria called me high maintenance like it was some cute personality flaw, and every line where James happily fed her private details about our relationship like she was his diary. My mom started reading excerpts out loud. Her voice was steady, lethal, and cold in a way I had never heard before. She read James's messages, the ones where he vented about me, exaggerated our arguments, painted me as the dramatic, unreasonable fiancé. She read Victoria's flirty responses, the digs, the passive-aggressive commentary, the way she positioned herself as the easy, chill alternative to me. And that's when James lost it. He shot up from his chair like someone had lit a fire underneath him. He started screaming. Screaming. That was private. You went through my phone, that's psychotic. You're twisting everything. You're manipulating them. You're trying to make me look bad. He was red-faced, shaking, absolutely unhinged. But then he said something that made the air disappear from the room. He looked directly at my parents, my mom still holding the printed messages, and said, "You know why she's so paranoid about Victoria? Because she's been cheating on me." My entire body went cold. He didn't stutter. He didn't hesitate. He went straight into it, inventing an entire affair on the spot. He accused me of being unfaithful, of acting strange, of working late too often, of being secretive with my phone. He said he'd suspected it for months. He claimed I was projecting my guilt onto him. He framed my discovery of his cheating as evidence of my guilty conscience. Tommy immediately jumped in, like a well-trained lapdog, saying, "Yeah, James told us this months ago," and nodding like he had insider information. Another guy chimed in, claiming they'd all seen me being flirty around other men. They were literally inventing a narrative in real time. Carly went feral. She lunged forward and screamed at James, full volume, calling him a pathetic liar, a coward, a disgusting excuse for a human being. She demanded to know how he dared throw disgusting accusations at me to cover his own mess. My dad. I have never seen my father so angry. He stood up, slowly, terrifyingly, and said in a low, shaking voice, "You have 30 seconds to take that back before this becomes something much worse." Even my Uncle Edward, who never raises his voice, looked ready to flip the table over. But James doubled down. He refused to budge. He shouted that everyone needed to know who I really was. He called me manipulative. He called me deceitful. He said I was trying to turn everyone against him because I knew I was guilty. It was pure, desperate, reckless chaos. And then, the door opened. In walked Deborah. James had clearly texted Mommy to come rescue him. She barged into the room like some overcaffeinated Avenger and immediately started attacking my family. She yelled at my mother for raising a daughter who snoops through phones. She yelled at my dad for intimidating James. She yelled at me for staging some dramatic ambush. She called me unstable, untrustworthy, said James deserved better than this circus. My mom stood up so fast her chair clattered behind her. She pointed straight at Deborah and said, "Your precious son has been cheating on my daughter for months." Deborah shrieked back that Victoria was just a friend and that I was too insecure to handle normal relationships. The room erupted all over again, both families shouting over each other. It felt like being in the middle of a hurricane. James puffed up his chest and started ranting that he'd put up with my controlling behavior for too long. He said, normal women don't look through their partner's phone and normal brides don't hold family tribunals. I snapped. I stood up, held up my phone, and yelled, "Everyone, sit down and watch." And then I hit play on Carly's video. The moment everything broke open, the room fell absolutely silent. The video showed James walking toward Victoria with the enormous bouquet of roses. You could hear Carly whispering in shock as she filmed. They saw him hand the roses to Victoria. Saw her leap up and hug him like a lover. Saw them sit curled up together on the bench. Saw him stroke her hair. Saw him kiss her forehead. Saw her melt into him. Saw the hand holding. Saw them on the carousel. Saw him laughing at something she whispered. Saw him wrap his arm around her waist. Deborah's face drained of every drop of color. She looked like she'd witnessed a ghost. She whispered, "James, when was this? Why did you buy flowers for her? Why are you touching her like that?" Tommy and the boys suddenly shrank in their chairs. James lunged forward to grab my phone, but my dad stepped between us like a brick wall. James started babbling, saying Victoria was going through a hard time, that he was just trying to cheer her up, that the video was misleading. Deborah kept staring at the screen, clutching her chest, whispering, why would you do this?" James then tried a new tactic, rage. He screamed that I was stalking him, that Carly was spying on him, that this whole thing was twisted. But my Uncle Edward cut him off. He said calmly, "You didn't get caught because you were stalked. You got caught because you're sloppy." And the room went dead quiet. The end. I pulled off my engagement ring. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. I tossed the ring onto the table in front of him. "You called me jealous while you were dating your ex behind my back. You called me controlling while you kept secrets. You called me paranoid while you were literally cheating. I'm done." Deborah started crying, apologizing to my parents, apologizing to me, saying she had no idea James had been lying. My mom yelled that James was a disgusting liar for inventing cheating accusations about me to protect himself. Carly turned around at the door and said, "If you didn't want to get caught, maybe don't cheat in public, genius." James was still screaming that I set him up, that this was all a trap, that I was unstable for exposing him. But nobody believed him anymore. Not even his own mother. The aftermath. James has been blowing up my phone ever since, a rotating cycle of, "I'm sorry. It wasn't what it looked like. Victoria needed support. I only kissed her forehead. You're dramatic. Let me explain. You ruined everything. We can fix this." But here's the funniest, and saddest, part. Victoria posted photos of the roses on social media. She's bragging. Flirting in the captions. Posting romantic song lyrics. Posing with the bouquet like she won the lottery. James is trying to convince me it was innocent, while Victoria is literally announcing their situationship to the world. He wasn't just cheating. He wasn't just emotional cheating. He wasn't just lying. He was living a whole second relationship. And trying to gaslight me into silence. But he underestimated me. Because now? I'm single. I'm free. And honestly? I've never felt more powerful in my entire life. Free in my entire life. And I meant it. The wedding? Off. Completely. Fully evaporated. First thing Saturday morning, I woke up with this strange sense of calm, like my entire nervous system had finally stopped screaming. I picked up the phone, called the venue, and explained the situation. I braced myself for fees, penalties, financial heartbreak. But they were shockingly kind. The woman on the phone said, "Given the circumstances, we can refund part of your deposit. You deserve better than this." I actually cried. In relief. In gratitude. In everything. My parents immediately stepped in like a tactical unit, handling the cancellations one by one. Catering. Florist. DJ. Photographer. Honeymoon. They told me not to worry about the money, not to worry about the inconvenience, that what mattered most was that I got out before saying "I do" to a lifetime of misery. James, of course, began melting down. My phone turned into a slot machine of emotional manipulation. Long, furious paragraphs blaming me for ruining his life. Voice notes full of ugly crying. Claims he messed up. Threats. Begging. And then the piece de resistance. "You're overreacting. It was one mistake. Don't throw everything away because of your pride." My pride? Sir, you literally took roses meant for your fiancé and delivered them to your ex in a park like you were auditioning for The Bachelor, Betrayal Edition. I didn't respond to a single message. Carly told me he's been posting vague guilt trip quotes online about losing the love of his life and people judging without knowing the full story. Meanwhile, Victoria's been posting glowing selfies holding my roses, captioned, "Sometimes the heart knows what it wants, kiss mark rose. Girl, please." The heart, the roses, and the fiancé all belong to someone else. The friend group fallout. His entire friend group went silent, except for one guy. Ethan. One of the two who voted that I was being reasonable at the bachelor party. He reached out with a long apology and said that what James did at the park made him sick. Apparently, rumors had been swirling for weeks in their group chat that James and Victoria were getting close, but nobody believed it, until the video started making the rounds. According to Ethan, once the clip circulated, half the groomsmen quit the wedding party. A few guys cursed James out for lying to them. Tommy tried to claim he always had a bad feeling, which is hilarious coming from the man who practically led the dump vote. So much for bros before brides. Turns out it was really bros before truth, until receipts drop. Victoria's spin campaign. Victoria hasn't slowed down. A mutual acquaintance told me she's been telling people James and I were basically over, and the roses were him finding closure. Closure doesn't usually involve forehead kisses, hand holding, cuddling on a bench for an hour, carousel rides, and whispering sweet nothings. But sure, babe, closure. She's also acting like she's the main character in a tragic love triangle nobody asked for. Deborah's revelation. Shockingly, Deborah, James' mom, texted me a few days later. A real apology. She said she felt sick watching that video and was mortified by how she spoke to me at the community center. She admitted she confronted James afterward, and he finally confessed that he and Victoria had crossed a line. Crossed a line. That's such a polite euphemism for "I cheated on my fiancé with my ex." Deborah said she was ashamed, heartbroken, and wished she had believed me sooner. I thanked her for apologizing but told her gently that I needed space from anything connected to her son. And she understood. Finding peace after the storm. The strange thing is, amid all the anger and heartbreak and chaos, I felt this slow-growing sense of peace. Like I'm finally coming back to myself. I keep thinking about the version of me from a few weeks ago, the woman sitting on the couch, doubting herself because a group of grown men decided her boundaries were up for public debate. I wish I could hug her. Because she wasn't controlling. She wasn't jealous. She wasn't insecure. She was ignored. She was dismissed. She was disrespected. And she deserved so much better. Turns out, the real, controlling person wasn't me, it was James. He needed everyone's validation for everything, his friends, his ex, his coworkers, his mother. He needed an audience to justify his behavior. I just needed one thing, respect. A new beginning. Carly has been staying with me, turning my apartment into a mix of sleepover therapy and comedic relief. We've been packing up James's remaining junk so I can drop it at his mom's house. We've laughed so much about the infamous dump vote. Every time I picture those grown men sitting in a brewery deciding if I'm good enough, I can't help but snort. A panel of men who can't even remember to hydrate judging my emotional stability? A fantasy football draft for my marriage? Please. The delusion was Olympic level. My parents have been absolute pillars. My dad told me he's never been prouder, that I stood up for myself, protected my dignity, and refused to ignore obvious disrespect. He said, painful now, but it saved you from decades of misery. And he's right. If James was already this weak-willed and easily influenced before marriage, imagine what he'd be like as a husband. No thank you. Where I am now, I'm focusing on myself. I deactivated social media. Started journaling again. Reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in months. Took long walks without checking my phone. Ate meals slowly for the first time in ages. For the first time in a long time, my life feels light. Like I can actually breathe without someone's expectations sitting on my chest. No wedding. No cheating fiancé. No peanut gallery of unqualified relationship advisors. Just me, my family, and a brand new beginning that I didn't know I desperately needed. James wanted outside perspective so badly. Well, now he has them. And the entire world agrees. I dodged a bullet the size of that giant bouquet of red roses. And thank God I did.